40,000 years ago. A valley in the shadow of the mountains. The wind cuts like a blade. A woman falls. She doesn't get up. The group stops. The wind howls. The child is pushing. The mother is fading. The group pauses. A moment of agonizing silence. Then, the decision. You exist, so they didn't choose the path that led to silence. If you've ever wondered how much of your conscience is a survival calculation, hit subscribe. We're opening the file on the cost of life. This is file number 016. The investigation into the grim arithmetic of our origin. When a mother died during childbirth, the ancient group faced a reality that modern psychology struggles to even acknowledge. A crisis of resources. We think of birth as a miracle. They thought of birth as a gamble. And when the mother failed, the gamble turned into a disaster. Think about the situation. You are in a migratory group, maybe 30 people. You rely on every single pair of hands. The mother's death isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a massive loss of labor, a loss of security, and, most crucially, a loss of the group's future potential. But the immediate suffocating problem is the infant. A newborn cannot forage. It cannot hunt. It cannot walk. And in an environment without formula, without bottles, without pacifiers, it requires one thing above all else: a wet nurse. It requires another woman in the group who is already lactating, who is willing, and who has the calorie surplus to feed 2 mouths instead of 1. Here is the cold forensic truth. A woman who is already nursing her own child cannot easily take on another. Her body is under extreme stress. Her own infant is demanding every drop of nutrition she can produce. To feed the orphan is to potentially starve her own. So, the group makes the calculation. And this isn't a calculation made with malice. It is made with the raw, brutal calculus of survival. Before we get into the grim arithmetic of this choice, drop a comment. If you were leading that group, and you are the descendant of those who made the right call, what would you do? Do you abandon the infant, or do you force the group to slow down and suffer to save a life that may not survive anyway? I read them all. The evidence from the fossil record and from anthropology reveals a surprising, often uncomfortable pattern. Ancient groups weren't monsters. They were calculators. They didn't just dump the infant and walk away. That would have been a catastrophic morale failure. Instead, they performed an assessment of value. Was there a sibling who could carry the child? Was there a grandmother who was past her reproductive years, no longer nursing, but capable of focusing all her energy on the infant? Could the group afford to stay in this camp for an extra few days, risking depletion of their immediate food source to give this child a chance? This is where the official story cracks. We like to think that human empathy is unconditional. We want to believe that we are the animals that never leave one behind. But the human audit tells a different story. Empathy was an investment. It was directed toward those who showed the greatest promise of returning value to the collective. If the infant was healthy, if the group had surplus, if the mother had been a key contributor, the group would often go to extraordinary lengths to save that child. They would trade off their own calories. They would risk the predator threat of staying in one place too long. They would invest. But if the group was already hungry, if the winter was coming, if the group was already stressed to the point of collapse, then the calculation shifted. Hold on to that feeling, that urge to want the child to live. That's your modern morality talking. It's a luxury afforded by the fact that you live in a world of relative surplus. If you want to see where that instinct was born, stay on the case with us by clicking the link in the description. The reversal here is as jarring as it is dark. We are the descendants of the survivors. And the survivors were the ones who could make the choice that felt like betrayal, but functioned as preservation. The mother's death was a failure, but the child's survival was a luxury. When the group chose to leave the child, they weren't being evil. They were being precise. They were making the impossible decision to ensure that the group survived to propagate their genes into the next generation. The generation that eventually produced you. This isn't about the cruelty of the past. It's about the uncomfortable necessity of the past. You carry that instinct in your gut today. That deep, existential unease you feel when you have to make a choice between two bad options. That's not a malfunction. That's the legacy of an ancestor who had to look at a motherless infant and calculate the life of the group. You are the product of those choices. You are the descendant of the ones who lived because they knew how to count. Case closed. If this file got under your skin, there's another one waiting in the evidence room. Subscribe. Stay on the case. The investigation continues.